The girl who spoke to the sky. The sun hung low over Tse-Kyado, casting long, merciless shadows across the village. The air was thick with dust, and the once bustling paths were now deserted. Cracks veined the dry earth like scars, and the river, once a lifeline for the people, was reduced to a shallow, stagnant trickle. Even the great baobab tree, a symbol of strength and endurance, stood forlorn, its leaves sparse and brittle. The village was silent, save for the murmur of worried voices that gathered under the baobab. The elders sat in a tight circle, their faces lined with worry and resignation. Children peeked from behind huts, their once cheerful laughter replaced by hollow stares. The dry season had stretched far beyond what anyone could remember, and the crops that should have sustained them had withered in the unforgiving heat. Torkwase, fetch water from the river, her mother, Enga, called, her voice strained. The request, once a simple task, now carried a heavy weight. Water was scarce, and the journey to fetch it had grown longer and more treacherous. Yes, Mama, Torkwase replied, picking up the clay pot with hands that trembled from exhaustion. At 12, she had always been lively and curious, but the season had stolen much of her energy and joy. Her feet shuffled along the dusty path, each step feeling heavier than the last. The walk to the river was eerily quiet. Torkwase passed fields that had turned to dust and homes where families sat in grim silence. At the riverbank, she knelt to fill her pot, the muddy water swirling reluctantly into the vessel. Her reflection stared back at her, the wide eyes of a child who had seen too much suffering. A rustle in the reeds startled her, and she froze. "Who's there?" she called, her voice a whisper. The reeds swayed gently, but no answer came. She tightened her grip on the pot and hurried back to the village, the weight of the water a stark reminder of how fragile their lives had become. That evening, the elders met under the baobab. Torkwase lingered at the edge of the gathering, listening as her father, Yav, spoke. "The rains will not return unless we act," Yav said, his voice heavy with determination. "The diviner has spoken. The spirits are angry, and it is Naya, the malevolent one, who holds the rains captive." A murmur of fear swept through the group. Naya was a spirit of mischief and malice, said to dwell on Matsav Hill, a place shrouded in mystery and danger. "Who will confront Naya?" asked Taremba, the eldest of the council. Silence followed. The hill was a place no one dared to go. Stories of those who ventured there and never returned haunted their memories. Torkwase stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I will go." Gasps erupted from the crowd. Yav's face was a mixture of pride and fear. "You are but a child, Torkwase," he said. "I may be young, but I have courage," she replied. "If Naya is the cause of our suffering, I will speak to him. And if Eondo, the sky spirit, listens, perhaps the rains will return." The elders exchanged uneasy glances, but the desperation in their hearts silenced their protest. That night, Torkwase's mother placed a necklace of cowrie shells around her neck. "This will protect you, my child," Enga whispered, her tears falling like the rain they so desperately prayed for. "May the spirits guide you." At dawn, Torkwase set off, the entire village watching her departure with a mix of admiration and sorrow. The path to Mbatsav Hill was long and winding, cutting through the dense forest that bordered the village. The forest was alive with sounds, birds calling, leaves rustling, and unseen creatures moving in the shadows. Yet, the deeper she ventured, the more oppressive the silence became. The sun climbed higher, and the air grew stifling. Torkwase paused to rest under a gnarled tree, its roots twisted like claws. She took a sip from her gourd and closed her eyes, but a voice startled her. "Why do you wander so far from home, little one?" Torkwase jumped to her feet, clutching her necklace. A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with skin as weathered as bark and eyes that glinted like whetstones. "I am a traveler," the woman said, her voice smooth yet unsettling. "Turn back, child. There is nothing for you on Batsav Hill. Torkwase's heart raced. She remembered her father's stories of spirits who disguised themselves to lead travelers astray. Thank you, but I must go on, she said, stepping back. The woman's smile faded, replaced by a scowl. Foolish child. You will regret this. Torkwase ran, her feet pounding the earth as the forest seemed to close in around her. When she finally emerged into a clearing, she collapsed, gasping for breath. The Hill of Shadows. Batsav Hill loomed ahead, its peak shrouded in mist. The climb was steep, and each step felt like a test of her resolve. As she neared the summit, the air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding enveloped her. At the top, she faced Naya. The spirit's form was a shifting mass of smoke and shadow, his eyes burning gold. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Why have you come, child? You have blocked the rains, Torkwase said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. I have come to ask Eondo to stop you. Naya laughed, a sound that echoed across the hill. And what makes you think you can challenge me? Because I am not afraid, she replied, standing tall. Naya's laughter stopped, and his smoky form swirled around her. Very well. Solve my riddles, and I will release the rains. Fail, and you will be mine. Naya's riddles were cunning, each one a test of her wit and wisdom. The first was about life's essence, the second about the balance of nature, and the third about the courage of the heart. Torkwase's mind raced as she recalled the lessons her father had taught her, drawing from stories and proverbs passed down through generations. With each correct answer, Naya's form darkened, his frustration evident. You are clever, child, he snarled. But cleverness will not save you. It is not just cleverness, she replied. It is hope. Her words seemed to strike a chord. Naya's form wavered, and the mist around the hill began to thin. You may have bested me, he growled, but the sky spirit will not heed your plea. We shall see, Torkwase said, stepping past him. At the summit, Torkwase knelt and raised her arms to the heavens. She spoke with all the strength and sincerity in her heart, pleading with Eondo to save her people. She reminded the sky spirits of their songs, their prayers, and the lives that hung in the balance. The sky darkened, and thunder rumbled. A voice, deep and resonant, filled the air. Your courage and faith have moved me, child. The rains shall return. As Torkwase descended the hill, the first drops of rain fell, cool and life-giving. By the time she reached the village, the skies had opened, and the earth drank deeply. The villagers wept with joy and hailed Torkwase as their savior. But the story did not end there. As the days turned into weeks, Torkwase began to notice strange things. Shadows lingered where they shouldn't, and she often felt unseen eyes watching her. One night, as she lay in bed, a whisper drifted through her heart. You won the rains, but the debt remains. Torkwase sat up, her heart pounding. She knew then that her journey had not just been a battle of wits but a pact with forces she barely understood. The rains had returned, but at what cost? The villagers continued to celebrate, oblivious to the weight that now rested on Torkwase's shoulders. And as the seasons turned, she carried the knowledge that courage often demands a price, a truth she would one day have to face.